And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to a Saturday night Sporking news dump. If that's where we're going, we were going to go with a very serious stream. But if you are coming where most of you are from the stream prior, there was a lot of enema jokes and Stephen Walton involved. So if you want to keep that moving, please let me know. Enema jokes with a 1 in the chat, or serious with a 2, or a sprinkle of both with a 3 in the chat. Let us know.
Yeah, they were on fire and burning through all those butt jokes.
Yeah. Yes, they were, sir. Yes, they were. So I want to first start out and say, if you're coming over from my TikTok account, I like to thank you for subscribing and joining up. My TikTok, I think I might be at 2,000 right now followers, and I appreciate that. Usually we do talk about Hollywood, their woke agenda, their SJW stuff, so I think we'll keep up with that with a little sprinkling of fun. And I see a lot of 3s out there, so that's what I like to see. This chat is already on fire, and to help me out with tonight, to try to keep myself going the right direction, we have next to me Script Doctor.
Hello. How is everyone doing this Saturday night?
It's already started. I think everybody's doing good, sir. Where can they find you?
Yes. You can find me on Twitter at ScriptDoctorPhD. I also have a YouTube channel that I've been keep trying to get back into, but I keep finding myself into new assignment work. So it's been kind of a little hectic, but it's youtube.com/ScriptDoctor. And yes, I'm so humbled and honored to be streaming with you again, sir. It's been a bit.
Yeah. And your YouTube channel is one of my favorite YouTube channels there is, man. When you dive into a show, I know I'm going to learn something, and I love that. So I can't wait till you get in there again. I like to read what Another Monster said, because you know what, buddy? I noticed that too. At Sporking News Podcast, Steven didn't shout any of the Rogue 4, including Final Death Star, in his 1K video. So he says, like bear, nerd fun, doomcock, nerdrotic, everyone that deserves a shout out. And then he goes, and my team. Like we're his freaking children or something. Like he's the coach. Okay. I like everybody to know that Steven and I started this thing together, and then Bear and Final Death Star jumped in, and Immortal Coil jumped in, and we all did it together. But for some reason, the Phantom Menace historian, who's showing up late right now, he's the leader. But thank you for making me think about that. So, oh, he is lurking. He's lurking. Okay. Just dumping some coffee down my throat. Once again, we have the lovely Jane. Introduce yourself.
Hey guys, you can find me here on YouTube, where I post movie and television reviews every Sunday at 6 Central. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jane Theory. And this Monday, I'll actually be on John Talks at 8 Central. See you then.
That's awesome.
It is.
So that's standard time, Eastern Standard, Central. What
Central.
Is it again?
Central
time. So 9 o'clock Eastern. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I will not miss that. So I'm trying to bring up a because we got off that stream so later than I thought we were going to do. So I want to first throw out something, be a little serious right off the rip until I get back into the enema jokes. What are your feelings? Now I know you're up in Canada, buddy, but Jane and Script, what is your feelings on defunding or getting rid of police forces altogether?
Jane, you go first. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have the same answer.
I don't honestly, I don't care what they do. If at some point they're going to have a police force, they're just going to call it something different. I think they're trying to model it after, I forget the city in New Jersey that allegedly did that.
Allegedly.
Because they did in fact reestablish a police force, but they didn't assign all of the responsibilities to the police, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, you do have police officers who say, look, we are called to address issues that we aren't trained for, like mental health and things like that. Right. But I guess They just don't know how else to express it. I mean, you do have those nuts who want to defund the police entirely and just have a Wild West situation, but yet those are also the people who tend to be anti-Second Amendment. So I don't know. It's either they're going to have police in some form or fashion, and it's just nonsense, or they want no authority, but they also don't want people to have guns. I don't see how that would work.
Well,
it's back to fisticuffs if you do it that way, which I think would be a bit more entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah,
high pants, suspenders, no shirt, fisticuffs.
Right. Yeah. I like it.
Talking old style.
It's just nonsense.
Well, to me, it's exactly that. They're trying to just move who has the control. And no matter what, you're still going to have a force of some sort, no matter what you call them. You know what I mean?
Because just like a civilian force or security or something like that. And it's going to be the same thing. The only thing I advocate for is better hiring practices, not just with police, but across all institutions, because holy crap. And better training, and especially when you're dealing with jobs that involve life-saving skills, which is what a police service does. I mean, I joke about it, but maybe there's some validity to just having a 7-year training course for cops before they actually get out on the field. You run them through as many scenarios as possible. You get to also sort of analyze how they react, so you can see how they are in these simulated situations, and weed out the ones that are going to do more harm than good. Basically, wash them out. And on top of that, you're then providing a standard of responsibility and code for the institution that is not only funded by the people, but is responsible for protecting the people from those outliers that are trying to mess around with everything.
And I don't think they understand one of the most important roles of police officers is the investigation.
Yeah.
You have people who commit actual crime. Now, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of laws on the books that are ridiculous. Okay.
Oh boy.
A lot of the drug laws, we could defund that, decriminalize all that.
No more private prisons.
Right. Yeah. Things like that. But you still need, for serious offenses, the police to investigate, to get information, to gather evidence, so that you can identify who is responsible and punish that person. You have to have that force at the very minimum for that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
And Thomas, real quick before we introduce Drew, Thomas Williams said before, and I don't have it highlighted right now, but he says, why did we have riots in Britain when our police don't even have guns? Right. So it's not about guns. It's about tearing down the authority figures that they deem wrong. They deem not necessary. Yeah. Drew, how you doing, my friend? Introduce yourself to everybody.
Oh boy, yeah. Something about being fashionably tardy, man. In this condition, I move around more like an 80-year-old guy than a 40-year-old guy. So
right. How you feeling, brother?
I've been better. I still got a lot of pain and inflammation and everything, and it hurts like hell. Today was a good day. I was able to get the first article in a long time bounding into comics, so that was great for my morale. That really helped, at least my mental health. So that helped a lot.
Well, I'm glad you're doing better, man. You still have your fun going on, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still got the PayPal out there. If anybody wants to help out, you toss money at the PayPal. Whether you do, whether you don't, everybody that's just, been sending well wishes and checking on me, that's the greatest thing in the world right now, because, I think above all, the best thing to have in the middle of all this, especially when you're going through something medically and it's really like kicking your ass emotionally, your friends are the big pick-me-up. And
that's what we're here for, buddy.
That's what helps. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll cover the story that I did today a little bit later. But as far as my thoughts on the current topic, I mean, Jane, as she always does, made a superb and excellent point. And, I think generally my estimation of it is you can't let any community break down into complete lawlessness. You have to have rule of law. That's just one thing. You have to have, one layer of protection, and the community deserves to have a reasonable level of protection from lawlessness.
Mhm.
So yeah, it makes no sense to me, these defund the police things. If anything, it's like the president was saying at that dinner the other day, they need to throw more money at it and change the training around.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's absolutely right, man. I'm just going to really quick say hello to the chat, and then I'm going to share a video that I found kind of disturbing, and also we'll talk about it. Hold on. So we got Eric JR
Maldonado.
Yeah, all right. How you doing, my friend? Dola Lifed. I love that one. Do Lifed. Parrot Head.
No, that's Dollar.
Palanuki.
That's Dollar.
Who is that?
That's my buddy Don. That's one of my
He's
colleagues
great.
founding into comics.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's great. We got Palanuki here. We got According to Christie saying pooping news podcast. I respect that. Another monster saying dump live crazy shit. We got TT in the house. We have a good amount of people here already. We have, and that's, how would you say this one? M Dastardly.
Yep.
Silver Fox Alpha. Thank you for dropping in. We have Bear Nerd Fun, of course. One of the OGs in the house of the fourth wave. Brutal Morningwood is one of my favorite names. One of the. Am I dragging here a little bit, guys?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right,
try not to laugh too hard and out loud.
Okay.
That is a great name.
Yes, it is. Juan. Mr. Wong, how are you? Hot takes. We love hot takes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thomas Williams is here. We already talked to him. And then as people jump on, we'll see him. Berserker 99. Author Stephen Walken is looming. And let's Happy Dinosaur. I love you, buddy. One of my all-time favorites, aka AFK Bard. Also, if you are not subscribed to AFK Bard, what are you doing? Please subscribe.
AFK Bard. Yeah.
And that goes the same with Shellback. Shellback might take a half hour to get out what he's trying to say, but it's important. Remember that. All right, and we're gonna jump right into it, guys. I wanted everybody. Tina, how are you? Thank you for stopping in. I'd like everybody to take a look at this. Now, it's not graphic, but it does show there was a report that the Miami police hit somebody with their car, attacked people, arrested people.
No, I saw that.
Right. Now, this is the footage, okay, that you get from somebody on the ground that's actually against the police. So this isn't even from somebody that wants to make them look good. Here we go. We're going to check this out right now. And this is coming from Latina on Fire. Latina on Fire. All right. Yeah, I like that name too.
No lag.
A little loud. I'm sorry. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit.
Yeah, you got a little lag on that video.
Whoa, did they swing a bat at the police car?
Yeah, like an idiot. I mean,
not just the bat. Not just the bat. They're taking skateboards. They're hitting the police car with bats and skateboards. So yes, the police are going to come out. Yeah, and tackle your ass.
Property damage. Yeah.
Yep. Now watch this part. This is what really got me upset. They're yelling at the cops or police officers for, trying to bring some order. And then look at these kids take some swipes at the police.
Yeah.
Skateboard to the head of that police officer laying down right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to back it up just a hair so you see him on the ground right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh,
Boom.
knocked his helmet off too.
Look at the cop! Look at the cop!
Yep.
Look at the cop! Look at the cop! Look at the cop! Look at the cop! Look at the cop!
Now that woman attacked that police officer,
That's insane.
hit that police officer. That police officer. Oh wait, I think it even gets worse.
Look at the cop!
Another one.
Yeah. It's all,
Boom. Hit
yeah,
that guy right off the back of the head.
it's
No
all
helmet
baiting.
on.
It's all baiting.
Yep. They
It's
come
all-
in, they hit
all
quick, they
baiting,
back out.
I mean, and that's why a lot of, I love how a lot of these people are like, we're peaceful protesters. Get the fuck out of here, you're peaceful.
Well, those clearly aren't.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're
No,
not.
not at all.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Get off him! Get off him! Get off him! Get off him!
So pretty much it's just them now,
Yeah, they're
bringing
whining.
order back.
They
Yeah.
sit
So,
there and whine and
What
bitch.
I don't understand. Yeah, for the rest of it. I mean,
But
here we
it's
go,
also
Christy
mob
coming on in.
courage. I mean, they don't do all of this when someone actually needs to be saved.
Well, sure, Jane. You listen. Anybody that's growing up around the inner city, this is just how people fight. This is how people fight. A majority of them, especially a lot of the younger people. It's a mob rules type of fighting mentality, and they won't do anything. 9 times out of 10, if you're a target, you're jumped.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't do this. I mean, I've seen
No, not this.
videos where you have someone who is actually being abused or assaulted by the police in the neighborhood, surrounded by groups of people, but they don't have this kind of courage to intervene and stop somebody from being killed.
Mhm.
It's only because of the environment that they're in, and it is because they're surrounded by other people who are just out there to protest. So they feel like they have that cover to lose their freaking minds and do things like this.
Right.
So they can film their friends and them being, I'm using air quotes here, attacked. But when someone is hurt, like a lone individual is hurt on the ground dying,
Right.
they'd rather film that and post that to social media and stuff like that in regards with David Dorn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's all that's all that is them wanting to get attention and stuff like that.
That's what
And
it's all
then
about.
and the freaking media goes for it.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
The left and the right. I
Yes.
mean, they feed into that fire.
Mhm.
And that's
then you
the
have-
issue I have with it too, is that they do focus on these incidents, and there are peaceful protests. You've had cities where thousands of people have been out there protesting, minding their own business, doing their thing. But something like this happens, and this is what's plastered all over the media. Even the people who are so-called pro-protest will look at these incidents and make that the story.
But have you really seen that? Because from where I am, I've been seeing none of that covered. I've been seeing CNN with fires burning behind them, and it's sounding like pipe bombs going off, and they're like, it's mostly a peaceful protest.
No, I've seen it. They just turn it around to make it seem like the police are abusing the people who are doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
But
all
they
you have to
show
do
the
is cut
conflict.
first
They
5
just change
seconds
the
off of
narrative.
any video.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, see, this is the thing, and I was talking about this with somebody else, a few days ago, and I want to make an important distinction right now. Black
Mhm.
Lives, listen, the thing with Black Lives Matter, and a lot of people are waking up to the fact is it's a hustle. It's
Corporation. Black
And
Lives
other-
Matter Corporation. Not the
Exactly.
movement, the corporation.
Exactly. It is a complete and utter hustle. Every single it's funny, all these brands that are bending the knee, all these celebrities that are bending the knee, all this money that's going to them is nothing but turned around and funneled to the Democrat Party. Maybe the hashtag means something, but people don't get behind the hashtag. They get behind the organization. And the organization is teaching so many things wrong. And they're just purposely focusing on one issue because it's the most divisive that they can find. And that is the police brutality aspect, because when you break into the actual numbers of unarmed people shot by police, then you see a stark contrast to where, this doesn't actually support their narrative. But they know most people don't do the research. So they continue to spout faulty facts and everything else. What you won't hear from Black Lives Matter is you won't hear them talking about solutions to create Black entrepreneurship and promote that, and promote Black businesses, and promote businesses opening in underdeveloped communities, other than liquor stores and check cashing places and the things that are the blight of those communities that help to hold people down. You don't hear anything talked about like that. They only want to talk about this one issue. They won't talk about other major civil rights leaders such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. They don't want to bring that into the equation, because then all of a sudden that shines a bad light on them because they are liberals. And what did Malcolm X teach us about? Well, that was usually the white liberal using the Black people, and it was
and that's the thing, bro. It what bothers me the most about Black Lives Matter Corporation is that they are not being honest of where the funds are going.
Exactly. They're not honest, and they're not.
Well, I mean, if you look at their website, it has all of these agenda items that have nothing to do with Black people. It's like they use this as the front, but they actually have a completely separate motivation for their existence.
Right.
And you're right, people don't pay attention to it, but I think, at the same time, you also have people confusing the organization with people who don't know anything about the organization.
Well, yeah, there's
a lot of people use the
hashtag
hashtag
to rebuild neighborhoods. Like, that's the thing. There's those that use the hashtag to actually rebuild neighborhoods. They clean up stuff. They get people involved. They make outreach centers where they can get the police to come in and say, hey, listen, this is what we know as a pattern for this area. This is how we can change it here. And they work together, and they're more community organizers. But they don't take money. That's the one thing I've noticed by some of the ones, especially in some of the ones in Ontario. They don't take money. They ask for volunteer time to do the things that they want, but it's all with their own resources, everything that they're all putting together with themselves. The reason why some of the chapters that I've seen in Ontario don't take money is they don't want to be beholden to the people that are writing the checks, and they have their own agenda too. So there's also that to kind of think about as well. Now, with regards to like what Malcolm X said years ago, I've done a lot of research on this stuff. It's more conjecture, but I mean, he's not wrong. But there is conjecture. When he tries to cite examples, he gets maybe a handful of people that you can actually verify for that type of stuff, which is actually atrocious. But also in some interviews, he actually contradicts himself. He says, like, Black leaders need to start saying these things, and the way that they can start saying them is by being mentored by white people. And then he goes off to say, well, these Black leaders that are doing it were mentored by white people, so they're not real representatives of Blacks. And it's like, well, that's exactly what you're asking to promote. So, like, get your shit straight, buddy. Like, I respect you a great deal, but come on, like, don't you're just trying to help people, but pay attention to your own words at the same time. Because I understand his meaning and message, which is not inherently terrible. It definitely was controversial for the time. It's a little bit controversial now, but he's all about self-sufficiency and independence. The little bit of segregation, which I'm not happy for. I mean, I think we're a human race. We should all be able to work together, regardless of of the things that we cannot control, like our appearance. And I mean, what's wrong with that type of goal? It's just like, hey, you're good at your job. Yeah, cool. I need you. Like, that's just all you need to do in that aspect. You don't need it to get any more complicated.
Well, we're gonna find out. It's eventually gonna come out. Somebody's gonna wind up exposing the fact that Antifa, BLM, they are both, movements that are there to simply, bring Marxism into the greater, I guess, society. They want to promote that sort of ideal so that those concepts take hold. Because as you were saying, Jane, when you go to their website, it really and truly, when you dig deep, it doesn't have much to actually do with Black issues.
Well, this is it right here. So thank you to Bear Nerd Fund for sending this tweet. So Black Lives Matter is the money that you donate goes through a company called Act Blue. Now, Act Blue, if donated money goes unclaimed, Act Blue can dispense it to whoever they want. And in their 2020 expenditures, the number one place they've sent it was Bernie 2020, 186, almost $87 million. Biden for president, $119 million. The top 10, are any of these for the Black community?
Maybe Andrew Yang, because he has a
Yeah,
broad
maybe
stroke
Andrew
thing.
Yang, yeah, but
Right, that's
but
still
he
a
was never going to win
person.
anyways, just because
Yeah.
people don't like the idea of getting their tax dollars sent back to them. I mean, they think it's free money, but it's their tax
no,
dollars being returned to them.
don't like us Asian people. Stop.
Hey, he had a great campaign. Trust an Asian guy who's good with math. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, he was better than what the crap that Simu Liu wrote the other day, where he's like, defund the police, and he's an accountant and then became an actor, and he knows money, so he should know that defund the police will not work.
Right.
And
So-
I think sometimes people get off track too when, and Candace does this all the time, which is why, you know, some people get on her for basically, you know, sort of straying a bit from reality. The people who are angry with police misconduct, it's not just murders that they're upset about. It's being stopped while walking down the street
Sure.
and searched and harassed 4 or 5 times a week. It's accumulation of different things. It's not just, you know, fear of getting shot.
It's essentially abuse and corruption, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something I noticed, you know, Jane, that they really never, I mean, they addressed it for a while, I want to say, like, oh God, around the 90s or so, they addressed racial profiling a little bit, but then they got away from that again, and it's like
because it's not important to them.
It's like why would you get away from that? That is a very important thing, and that is a thing that goes on in inner city neighborhoods. Hell, there's a community, there's a city right next to the city I live in. It's called Amherst. I live in the town Lorraine. The next city over is Amherst. Now, if you drive around Amherst, if there happens to be bored cops, if you have dark skin, and I'm just telling you this because I know from experience, because, you know, hello, I have dark skin, you are more likely to get followed. If they're just sitting there pulled in a parking lot doing nothing, they will casually run a plate, give you a tail for a few lights. You know, I mean, just something like that. It does happen.
Can I tell you something that just happened? And when I came back, when I was going to my apartment, going to the store real quick. So I went to the store, and a couple of the guys, they were out just hanging around. They're Black guys, and everybody was just talking. They had a grill and stuff like that. Well, it was really interesting that a patrol car for the city that I live in parked right next to them.
Right.
And didn't say anything type thing. And you could tell the guys were tensing up and everything like that. And finally, one of them goes, "Can we help you with something or anything like that?" And they're like, "Well, we're just patrolling the apartment," because the apartment complex that I live in does have with the city, like, to cops to come control. But it's just really convenient that they parked very close to the guys who were just sitting down, talking and having a good time. And so, yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
It's present.
Exactly, Christy. And that's something that does need to change. It's like just by, you know, doing what those officers did, they bring the anxiety out in Black males, people, anybody, you know, when a police officer's next
if
to
you
you,
get eyeballed, you're gonna get a little tense.
Right, of course, but the problem is it is too focused sometimes. I do understand that. There is you got 4 white guys grilling. The cop might not sit there as long. You know what I mean? There is that inherent, at least picture, that police sometimes will focus on minorities more than they will focus on white guys. I get that. The problem I'm having mostly is how we're going about now. All of a sudden, all cops are bad, defund them, get rid of them, but while we're still burning down our city, we're killing people, we're beating people, we're robbing people. It's the big picture I'm looking at. You cannot tell me that picture tells middle America this is a good thing to do, is to defund the police right now. Your message is gone. Your message is gone.
And one of the great ideas,
overcompensation for 1% of the problem.
One of the things someone came up with was, well, not came up with, but one of the things they suggested was that more people from these communities join the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To me,
that's what the Irish
solution.
did in the day when they, of course, the other downside to that was some of those Irish were part of the mafia. But I mean, I don't think it's going to be like that again these days. We can only hope,
but you have to be there. You actually have to be a part of the system.
You have to be part of the community.
You had, racist judges. Well, you have to get more Black people deciding that they're going to go to law school, become attorneys, and become judges. You have to become the DA so that you can bring the cases. You have to become the police officer so that you can actually do something and not just stand there and record. I mean, you have to
become a politician to refute terrible laws.
Exactly. And repeal them,
Right. Right.
It just, you can't just, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of protests generally. It's like they're trying to convince the public to do something for them that they should be doing for themselves actively. And I just don't think it's going to work. It's not going to work until you actually choose to take responsibility and take control where you can in your local administrations.
Yeah, you got to learn the rules inside out and backwards before you can start to change them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And that's just because you maybe have a good idea, but if you try to implement it without knowing the system itself, it might end up doing more harm than good. But if you know the system really well, you can start predicting where things can go based on your new rule and then accommodate for that so it does more harm, does less harm than intended. Because every new law, every new change is going to have a recourse in some way. So you just have to have the education, the experience, the confidence, and the determination to try and mitigate that as you try to bring it up to fruition. There's a reason why progression is slow. It's going to take a long time. You don't want a light switch flip, because then what you're going to have is a whole lot of people who are just resistant to the idea, not because it's a bad idea, but because it's a fear of change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cultural thing. Like that we don't have a huge culture that wants to embrace curiosity. We're like, nope, those are some questions you just don't need to ask. Shut up and do your thing and bide your time. Yeah. It's no, we got to change that a little bit.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand how the local governments are using the police force as essentially tax collectors. They're going into areas, they're enforcing ridiculous laws that shouldn't even be on the books against certain communities that allow it to happen. And when they do get arrested and they do go to court, they're just fined and hook, put on the hook with all these fees and costs that then fund the city government.
Tina,
and it's over quota based, which means it's run more like a business than it is like a community when it gets to quota based, where it's like, okay, so we have 1,000 cops in this small little village. They do the patrols. Crime is down to zero. Well, why do we need cops then? It's like, well, because we want to keep that crime to zero. And it's like, well, no, if they're not doing their jobs. Like, if there's no crime, they're doing their job. Like that's just how it kind of works. Like,
can I just say something real
community?
Quick?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Let me just interrupt because one of my favorite people, Happy Dinosaur 8000 said his anxiety is kind of up. I think it might be about what we're talking about. I don't know. He had to leave. I don't mean to trigger anyone. I know I usually talk about comics and, mostly about movies and TV and stuff like that. But I'm sorry. Chris Persia said it earlier. I don't back away from what's going on. I can't. I'm not that type of person. So I hope I don't lose anybody as a subscriber, but I can't not also tell my truth and the things I believe. And this is really important right now. Yeah. We can get into some funny stuff later. That's fine. But I there's that one video, and if someone can find it or even share it, where that police, he might be a union guy, says, this badge isn't stained. Like, that is how I feel about our police. My friend's brother, I was probably 11 or 12. He was killed in the line of duty in a small town in Connecticut. And he didn't deserve that. He was a great guy. He was a community guy, and we need more police that are community guys that actually don't just park next to the black guy grilling, but gets out and say, "Hey, what are you guys grilling? What's going on? Yo,
Can I bring a steak?"
Like,
Yeah.
they somewhere along the lines from, where what we used to think of police back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. Yes, there was racial tension. Yes, there was issues. But let's even go maybe like where I'm from. The police got to know you on a first name basis.
Mm-hmm.
No longer that is. Now it feels like it's a military group kind of pulling you over. Like, this is it. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. I feel like they need to do more community outreach, get to know people, not just colors, numbers, whatever, male, female, people.
It's not even so much just even the cops, the local cops being more familiar. I mean, when I was growing up, we knew who the garbage guys were.
Exactly.
They were the same people from I was 8 till I moved out at 18. The postmen and stuff like that. That's how you recognize people, and that just doesn't like that anymore.
Let's say goodbye to Jane first. Jane has to pop out.
I do.
Take care,
Jane, my toking black friend, you can't leave me. God, now I gotta watch what I say. All right, Jane, thank you for stopping in as long as you did. I really appreciate it. It's a news dump. Some of this will be serious. Some will have fun. So if somebody has something fun they want to talk about, we will. But I had to touch on this. Any last words? Not last words. Anything
Last words.
like
Well, I think we hit on a major point, and that is, and again, that's courtesy of Jane, and it's the fact that casually the racial profiling portion of this is buried while people are putting this issue on the table, and this is just one issue, and they're not getting to the root of it, which is a lot of it is the racial profiling, and that conversation does need to be had, and more people should bring awareness to that, because that does have to change. It really does.
It does. And changing the drug laws would help a lot with that, because that's the reason for a lot of the stop and frisks.
Yeah.
It's being driven by drugs. It's not being driven by violent crime, because that's always the excuse. Violent crime is incredibly minimal compared to drug crimes.
You eliminate the drugs, you eliminate the trafficking that and then
if you go to your local court, your local criminal court, sit through it, and you'll see that the vast majority of cases are drug possession.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, what is really going on here? Because it's not like people are really getting help for it. They're just getting charged for it. And at the expense of the relationship between the people and their police departments. So that's all I have to say on that.
Bye, Jane.
Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye.
I was going to touch up what Jane said with drugs, even alcohol. So I live in a suburb of Dallas, and we've been dry for many decades. And every time it comes up to vote, I love to drink, okay, socially, whatever, and stuff like that. I know,
Come
right?
on.
But when it came to that, I voted no. I didn't want that, because there's the convenience store that's literally across the block from my apartment sells liquor now, and then people congregate in that area type thing too. So I mean, maybe that's me being profiling a little bit. I don't know, but it's just
you don't want people hanging outside your home that might be up to no good. Doesn't matter what their color is, if they have it. It's just, hey, a group of people are hanging out in front of an area. It's kind of like when what I had to tell my godchildren this when they started getting of age, because a couple of them are now drinking age in Canada. I said, if you're ever like leaving a bar, don't hang out the front, because you know who hangs out the front? People that were thrown out of the bar, and they're going to be angry, and they're going to look to punch somebody, and you're going to be standing there chatting with your friends like an idiot, and they're going to come to fight you because you're having a good time and they just been told they can't drink anymore. So don't ever hang out in front of a bar. Same thing goes with a convenience store that sells alcohol and stuff. You don't hang out in front of that, because someone's going to be turned away from being able to buy alcohol for whatever reason. Reason.
Thomas brings this up. Now, Thomas is in Britain. Thomas said, we had a guy on this morning from BLM, and he wants to legalize all drugs to cure the drug problem. Scott, as a recovering drug addict, hardcore drug addict and alcoholic, I'm completely against legalizing everything. What you do decriminalize is the lower levels. Marijuana. I don't even care. Mushrooms, alcohol, you know, things like that. If it comes from the dirt, usually it don't hurt too much. When you have to process cocaine, heroin, all these methamphetamines, crack, that is something that if you weren't focused so much on weed and, you know, things like that, you could focus your task force on stopping what you know is coming over the borders. And I'm not just talking Mexico, coming in shipping containers from Asia and Afghanistan, the Middle East. They allow it to come through. We all know the war on drugs is a joke. Okay?
You can't have a war on an idea. That's the problem.
There you go.
Exactly. You know what it finally took me realizing that? Because I've had it, what y'all just said, I've had it in the back of my mind. This war on drugs is a joke and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I saw a documentary on Netflix with
This is another Tiger King thing, is it?
No, El Chapo. Two journalists were able to get, obviously, I don't know what they had to do and stuff like that to get into, Mexico or wherever he was living. But they were within 5 miles of him. But yet I heard at the time the media say they don't know where he's at. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I mean, that's it, right? I don't know. What do you think about that, Drew?
No, I agree with what you said, Scott. I mean, you need to like assign tiers to the drugs, obviously, like tier 3, which would be like marijuana, mushrooms, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Sure, that's what you legalize. But tier 2 and above is the stuff that you go after, because that's the stuff you don't want on the streets.
Right.
Obviously, tier 1 would be like fentanyl and
shit like that, man. That kills kids. It's killing them by the fucking shipload. Guns aren't killing kids mostly. It's drugs. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these people, I'm sorry, that decide legalize
drugs start it, and then someone draws a gun, and if they're high, then
Yeah. Oh, but if you legalize it, they could make sure the right people are getting it. That's bullshit. I bought beer when I was like freaking 12. Okay.
They also need to regulate shit like this, guys, because look, as thankful as I am for these things, which
this is valid.
Right here, this is hydrocodone.
Yep.
I mean, Jesus Christ, they gave me, right off the jump, no questions asked. The ER doctor, prescribes 30 of them.
Oh, see, now in my state, they won't do that.
Now I've used a majority of these because yes, I'm legitimately in pain, but they're horribly, anything that has opioid base is addictive.
Well, that was my thing.
Not only that, when you get off of it, you're gonna feel a shadow pain or a ghost pain where you're not actually in pain, but your body says you are, so you have to get more of the drugs. And the worst part is the doctors can't differentiate between the two because your body's not differentiating between the two. Right. So you're going to be in a perpetual cycle, which is why in Canada it's really, really, really hard to get those types of drugs. Up here, they have to run you through a lot of stuff.
Well, let me tell you this.
Sometimes they do an experiment with your genitals to see how determined you are and in pain. Like they'll torture you a little.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
You
like if they think that you're just at the hospital to get drugs, they will run you through a battery of tests to make sure that the pain you have is legit.
Now, will
And-
they give you like an enema to see if you're bound up? Because people,
Oh, fuck, here we go.
no,
they
I'm
might
just
actually do a
saying,
swab. They might do a
yeah.
swab of your genitals, like an STD type of test.
Oh wow! Oh, those hurt.
Yeah, because and if you can tolerate that, then they believe you're in pain. And not a lot of people, even if you are a drug addict, can tolerate that. You have to like kill some serious nerve damage before that happens. So yeah, because they don't want you getting addicted. That's just the
right. Well,
case.
addiction. Look, opioids. Yeah, Vikes, perks. You'll feel like shit the next day or two. But once you get into things like OxyContin, things like I got hooked on OxyContin, didn't even know I was hooked. I thought I had the flu when I stopped using it after a week. I was like, oh, I must be sick, and from there on, I had a 10-year journey of drug addiction.
And there has to be some regulation on that, because we can't continue to have physicians that are just handing them out like candy. I understand pain management, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there is a need to help a patient with pain management. You have to. When somebody's hurting that bad, like
but dude, it has to be regulated, like you're saying. Like Florida used to have pain management clinics that popped up in the early 2000s, and you can go down there and get a false script from a fake doctor pretty much next door, go over there and get hundreds of OxyContin. Now in Connecticut, my wife had a C-section with our last daughter. It was a bad C-section. It was horrible what she went through. Her doctor's like, I want them to give you 40 Percocets when you leave here, and then we'll talk. She gets a 1-day supply of Percocets. So now she calls her doctor, and her doctor doesn't call her right back. I'm starting to get angry. So she calls her doctor again. The doctor answers the phone. Hey, what's up, druggie? What do you need? Like, what? People.
Oh yeah. They're still they're pill mills. We still have them here in Dallas area. I can name 5 right now. I mean, we can go on and on about this. I mean, I have a shit. I almost said who it was. I have a family member who, if they're not there, it is what it is. They go on about life. But if they're there, it's like they're eating a Tic Tac.
Yes.
And I remember I went to go visit them, and because I went and got my wisdom teeth pulled. That hurt. I had never had that type of pain and stuff like that. I had a bottle, and the dentist gave me 45 hydrocodone. 45.
Whoa.
Jesus.
You don't need that. You just need an hour of nitrous oxide.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
No,
but
seriously.
I had never been used to that, though, and I ended up getting dry socket. So I'm kind of glad I had some of those. But I went to go visit them, and I had the antibiotics and the pain meds. And I kind of got sick a little bit. I was like, well, if I take the antibiotics, I won't have that much type of pain. I'm visiting with my nieces, and I come back, and she's in my purse, getting more pain pills. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm getting a pen. So I go home. I was missing 22 hydrocodone. 22.
Holy crap. That's the worst part. I feel like no, go ahead, buddy.
Well, just trying to think. I mean, I'm aware that in some Netherlands countries they do have, the Scandinavian countries, they do have clinic centers where you can go in and do some intravenous drugs. But the thing is, you can't buy them outside of that clinic center. It's administered by a nurse, and they keep you in a controlled environment, and they make sure that you're just enjoying the high and whatnot, and they try to encourage you not to do it, what have you. But a system like that would never work in a more densely populated country like the United States. You just can't. The culture does not encourage responsibility and trust when it comes to drugs and even healthcare. And the other part too, that I even have to remind other doctors about this, because again, my aunt administers a hospital. She has to remind them about this. My sister's a nurse. My mom's a nurse. Medical science, the way we recognize it, is less than 100 years old.
Right. It's brand new.
It's brand new. We know more about how the universe functions than we do about the human body and the chemicals we can put into it.
Which Star Trek is it where they go back in time and
Star Trek 4.
Right, and he talks about like how they're
Fundoscopic
barbarian.
examinations, drilling
Yes.
holes into people's
Yes.
heads, stuff like that. Yeah, that was only 40 years ago.
Exactly. I wonder, like in 150 years, when they're like, why would they give them opioids for pain? All opioids do is, like you said, they'll mask that pain. So sometimes the person feels better and they have a knee surgery and they're like, I'm fine. Da, 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 da. And then when that's gone, they have that phantom pain. Like
Yep.
they need to find better solutions.
Well, they need to start
Doctors are
treating.
legal drug addicts sometimes, and
Yeah, they need to
they're
start treating
drug
the
dealers.
injury or the disease and not the symptoms. And now that's one of the things that got me when I went to become a doctor. Like I had to go see the dean of admissions, and this is in my high school. Like I just been told I can't be a cop because I did too well on the written exam. So I didn't want to be a lawyer because I didn't.
Back up. What?
Wait, what?
So in Canada, if you get a perfect on the written exam, they will not recruit you because they don't think you'll be able to take orders, and they think that you might be over involved in possible investigations and a little bit of a disruptor because you know more about the system and law than maybe the people that are above you.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't tell you that the first time, and I found that out afterwards. And one of my friends, who was several years older than me, as a cop, was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. You kind of have to, get like a 70 on the test if you want to become a cop." and he's like, "Well, what the hell?" And he's like, "Yeah." And some of the best ones that you have there knew that, did it, and they're kind of steering the thing, the cops in a better direction, but they're few and far between because not everybody knows that, and we're all conditioned, if you're going to take a test, do your best on it, right? So
Absolutely.
And what people are talking about right now is they want better, smarter, better trained police officers, and you're telling me you're better, get the hell out.
You're so good that you might actually end up doing bad by the system, and it's like that's just comes down to like the unions and the thin blue line brotherly camaraderie that they have in there. It's like you might be such a good cop that if you see a bad one, you're probably going to turn them in, and then that might have an unraveling effect on all the cases that they brought in. And it's like, no, that's not how the law works. Like if I'm a district attorney and I try and convict several criminals by a jury of their peers, and say it's learned that I have side businesses that are illegal, but they have nothing to do with my convictions. Those people who I convicted do not have the grounds to ask for an appeal based on my performance as a DA because my crimes aren't related to the job. And even if they were, it's still conviction by a trial of their peers with the evidence provided. And if the evidence isn't falsified, which in most cases it wouldn't be from a district attorney, that's kind of sketchy because they're using their influence and their money for personal stuff as opposed to getting criminals because they don't really care. You're not going to be able to unravel the whole system. Same thing with a cop. Unless the cop is planting evidence, there's nothing to do to have all their callers like brought in for reevaluation of what's going on. Like that's the case. Like even if it was a cop that planted evidence, so a third party would get involved and go through all the case files to see which ones were actually wrongly arrested and get those ones addressed accordingly. They wouldn't be getting out the next day. It'd just be a very long and detailed process to make sure that the right people that are innocent are being released and then taken care of. Probably getting restitution from the department, and the wrong ones stay where they are because that's just how it works. But after that whole bout in my life, I decided, hey, I got family in the medical field. Maybe I'll go apply. I had the grades for it. I applied. I sat down with the dean of admissions. We had an interview, and he asked, like, what would be my approach to medicine after I graduated? It's like, well, I want to treat the disease and not the symptoms. And he's like, well, that's not how it works. And I'm thinking, well, what's the point?
Jesus.
Like, it's Canada. Aren't we supposed to try and, like if a guy breaks his arm, I should probably fix it, not just give him painkillers.
Right.
He's like, well, yeah, you do that. And it's like, okay, well, if a person has, say, tumor, shouldn't I try to do something to get rid of that tumor and not just give him like chemotherapy off the bat that will kill his entire immune system at the same time? Like there's other possibilities. And even while I was saying like that's the approach I want to do, there's a doctor in Ottawa who managed to genetically manipulate the measles so that it would target cancerous tumors and eat it away without chemotherapy, and so far it's had 100% success rate, and it's like one of the better treatments there, but it's a very difficult list to get on because even in Canada, we take a long time to approve stuff that we don't know 100% because the smarter people in the field recognize that, medicine is very much in its infantile state. And because I had that mentality, the dean of admissions rejected me, saying I'd just be a waste of a physician on people. And he might be right. I don't know. but yeah, like I just took my approach to medicine like Dr. McCoy does. It's like, I'm going to try and find out what the source of the goddamn problem is. I'm going to fix that.
Fix that source and just get it going. So that's where I'm staying. I don't mind legalization of, like you're saying, stage 3 or level 3 type drugs, but anything above that, it needs to be regulated better than it is right now, even with the professionals. So that's how I feel about that. So let's
I was gonna say
let's just change it up.
We're getting close to the top of the hour here, so
I'm changing it up completely. Let's have some fun. So, Star Trek, Picard. Okay,
God.
Picard is supposed to be, I don't know, might be a little bit more woke than previous.
It is more woke.
Okay, so has anybody heard any rumors about Picard? I'm going to get up the article I had, and I'd like you guys to tell me what you think we're going to see in the next season while I'm doing this.
Please. Picard's going to be denied his Federation citizenship because he's a synth.
Or do you think so?
I'm just speculating. What's the dumbest thing that these guys could do?
Oh my God, that would be fantastic.
You're not the real Picard. You're an android copy. That's true. Like it's absolutely true.
Right. So do you think they'll have Riker back?
Yes.
Yeah, they almost have to.
Okay. Now, where do you think? So here, I think this is the one here. Patrick Tard is ready to. Okay. So this came out, a few days ago, but it caught me. I don't know about you guys that Patrick Picard said, or Patrick Picard. Oh my God.
Patrick Picard.
I just did that. Sir Patrick said he's ready to take more risks. What the hell?
Well, he's an old guy, so I guess doing a second season.
I'm ready to be more of an SJW.
I mean, at his age and at his health, I don't even know if he's possibly able to be insured on the set.
How's that work? Seriously, how does that work?
So a doctor from the studio gives you a physical.
Okay.
And then based on that report, they tell the insurance people, insurance side of things and accounting, if this person could withstand whatever they have in store with them for the filming process.
Okay.
And Patrick Stewart, even though he's younger than William Shatner, is not as healthy as William Shatner.
Right.
Come
on, it's Shat, right? Right.
Like, Shatner's still riding horses.
Shat.
I mean, so Patrick Stewart is like you see him in his interviews, he struggles to speak. And these are not like late afternoon interviews. These are done in the early morning. Like he should have been awake for maybe 2 hours. and
right.
He struggles to speak. He has a weak voice. He just doesn't feel like himself. And even when he's acting, he's in the situations where he's supposed to have that commanding presence. It's hollow.
It's not even that it's hollow. He has that old weak voice. Like he doesn't have enough air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like, he
like
can't
he has
even
physical hypertension.
Yes. Like he can't give the gusto it needs in that part, like that oomph that you need,
Yeah.
All right. So let's read this. All right. So Patrick Stewart is ready to take more risks for Star Trek Picard season 2. Oh, sorry. I might've just dropped some. There's Christy.
And Drew, where'd Drew go?
I think I dropped Drew out by accident. Don't worry, people. Technical difficulty. Please stand by.
Damn internet.
All right. Everybody back? We're
Yes.
good. All right, move on. My news dump sucks right now, people. Don't worry about it. All right, so the second season of Star Trek Picard is being planned out, and star Patrick Stewart is dropping some hints on where it might be heading. As part of its FYC Emmy campaign, CBS sent Picard star Patrick Stewart and showrunner Michael Chabon to LA Times to talk about crafting the first season. They also talked a bit about season 2. So let's just jump down to what Stewart's saying. So they ask where they think season 2 will go. And Stewart
Oh,
says,
I think that first quote that Stewart has is quite telling.
yeah. All right. So Stewart says there was no socializing between the actors for the first 5 months. We were shooting when we came to the end of the season. We had promotional activities to engage with, and we were traveling together on an airplane and got to know one another so much better. All right, before I even go on, script doctor, don't actors get to know each other before they start filming a little bit?
Technically, they do, because they have this thing called table reads. This is where they get the script before they get to the set, usually a week or so prior. They gather around, they read their lines with each other. The showrunner, the writer's assistant, and whoever wrote that episode take notes of where to improve lines and see how they change the flow or pacing of the show. And then in that time, it's a full day. It's usually between 8 and 12 hours, just on the one episode. They rehearse it over and over. Director's usually there saying, hey, try this performance or this take on this line. And that's where you end up getting to know your fellow cast members and some of your crew members.
Okay.
Doesn't look like that was the case here. It looked like, hey, we don't even have time for a table read. Luckily, there's a lot of experienced actors here, except for the children that they hired. And they just kind of threw them into the mix like an independent film. Like, here are your sides, go stand here on your mark, say your lines, and we'll take it from there, which, explains how terrible Picard is.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Christy, what are you doing?
Christy is
I'm reading the chat.
Yeah, she's reading the chat. The chat is on fire once again. Thank you for being here, guys. What do you take from that, though, Christy, that they didn't know each other?
They're idiots. I mean, again, I'm not someone who knows all the Hollywood dynamics with filming something, but you would think that even if you didn't want to be their best friend, you would talk to them and be like, hey, like Scripts just said, what about this scene? Should we do it something differently? Or communication, basically. But it sounds like there was no communication.
Yeah, Jesus, man, that's a rudimentary thing. That's any job, and you have to at least have some kind of relationship with your colleagues. It's like, my goodness, if they just skip steps in production, that's just, again, it sort of lends to what we heard about this show from the jump, which was that it was hurriedly put together and it was very amateurish.
Yeah, it's like they treated every cast member like a guest star, where they just come in for their one episode. It's usually like 5 days that they should do the shooting process, maybe up to 8, depending on how complicated it is. And the guest star only has usually like 3 or 4 scenes out of the entire hour, and that can be done in 2 or 3 days at the longest. So they don't even have to come in and get to know the other actors. They just have to do a good enough performance that the other actors can work off of that. And it seems like that was the kind of the case with this one. Like, Patrick Stewart's the only cast member. Everybody else is considered a guest star. So they just come in, they do their takes, they get out, which is still irresponsible, because you really shouldn't have like just one person as the mainstay of your entire series. I mean, even Quantum Leap had 2 guys. Like,
oh my God. Right. Exactly. So, all right. So let's read a little bit more. This is going to be a new element in season 2, that there is a lot of mutual respect everywhere. If you know you can take risks, and there is a network around you that if you crash land, they'll catch you. It's a wonderful feeling. That's how I feel now. I feel safe. So he has a safe space. Safe space. That's great. The main cast. What did you read now? The main cast is all expected to be back, with the exception of Harry Treadaway Narek. Oh, really?
good. He was terrible.
Yeah, but okay. How are they going to write that one out?
Maybe he died.
The The Star Trek's Voyager 7 of 9 was a reoccurring character and appeared in the closing scene of the season 1 finale. And Jerry Ryan recently confirmed she will be back for season 2, which is expected to start shooting in the fall. It has also been confirmed that Whoopi Goldberg will be reprising her TNG role as Gyna. And LeVar Burton indicated he'll be bringing in, are you serious? LaForge as well? Oh, my
Yeah, why
God.
not? I mean, with Data gone, I mean, Brent Spiner can't really come back unless he's as Alton soon. And get the other science and engineering officer.
Now, do you think 7 of 9 will come back? Now, she recently, or I saw an article recently that they talked about 7 of 9 has always been gay.
What?
Yes.
She's a Borg.
Yes.
Sexuality is irrelevant to her.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I saw, and if I can find that one, we'll bring that one up too. Someone Google that.
It also
now
makes
this
her
might-
asking a question why she was dating Chakotay at the end of season 7. So.
Thank you. Now, do you think they are going to push that agenda forward? Having, Auntie Raffi
they
and
already
7 of
did.
9 get down.
He already did
Mhm.
with that last scene, kind of.
That was improvised by the 2 actors as well. So
Was it really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks
Of course.
for setting
Why?
that one
Because
up for
actors
us.
always want to take a risk or do something that they don't do. They want to play God. They want to play opposite their own convictions. Which, I mean, it's fine. It's acting. You're supposed to play something different. But just because you have an idea for something different doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Jesus. So, not much is known about where season 2 is headed. Akiva Goldman has said the writers are using the extra time given to them during the pandemic lockdown to refine scripts and stories, which includes ensuring that early episodes tie in neatly with payoffs that came later in the serialized season.
Oh, God.
Where was that mentality for the first season of Picard?
Yeah.
I was just about to ask you guys that question. Like, are they admitting that the serialized way they went, instead of being like episodic, each episode could be standing on its own, they went with that serialized form? Do you think they might try to go back episodic?
I mean, it'd make things a little easier, but it'd be very different for the streaming service because so many people are used to the long form story structure where one episode may be self-contained, but it's one piece of a larger story, and it's very difficult to write those. And someone like Akiva Goldsman has never written anything like that, nor is he capable. So good luck. Even doesn't matter how many writers he hires on to his staff. He's the showrunner, and he's going to muck it up anyway. So
Yeah.
What about you, Drew? Pretty much same thing.
I don't know, man. They better hope that they hire some Battlestar writers.
those Battlestar writers, I love them, but they're not there anymore. Every writer loses their hold in some way. So you just want someone who still loves those types of storytelling, that's young and hungry, and that will be committed to doing that, will also be being able to keep their job.
That's why they need to hire a script doctor.
There we go. I agree with that.
Get
Here,
fired
here.
within a week.
You know what? It'll be the best week ever.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like
We don't
Walter
love it.
Mosley, scooch over. I'm going to sit next to you because I do have to leave.
All right, so let's finish this paragraph out. He also described the idea behind the season as cool.
Cool.
Cool. Shaban has previously stated that season 2 will address the repercussions of Picard's consciousness being transferred into an android body. Script, it's popping up. Patrick Stewart recently stated that the new season will not be covering the same ground, adding there are startling events predicted in season 2. Okay. Oh God.
Wait,
I'm
what?
sorry.
There's nothing
though.
predicted for season 2. It hasn't
Thank you.
come yet.
He didn't say no, but exactly. He says there are startling events predicted in season 2. How the hell does that make any sense?
It doesn't. It's predicted in the future. Okay. So we have to wait for it to air to see what's predicted. Then the season 3 is when those will come to fruition. And will they get a season 3?
Yeah. Akiva Goldman is an enema. Thank you, Thomas. You're absolutely right. I do like her though. I'm sorry. I like her. I like her as I when she was her doppelganger, she was hot. Okay.
Oh, was Sutra in the gold makeup? Yeah.
Yeah, the gold makeup got me, dude.
She's 20 years old. It's just kind of creepy for me.
She's only 20?
Yeah,
Why'd
she's a
you
kid.
say that? You son
She's
of
a
a bitch.
child.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was like
Picard,
19 when they were shooting that.
Yeah.
are you serious?
Yep.
So author Stephen Walton, is that right or wrong that her being 20 should bother me? That's a question for the chat.
Yeah.
So is this the one, Christy, that I was talking about?
That's the one that popped up, but I don't know if it is. I'm scanning the article now to
Okay,
see.
scan it,
but
let me know.
Okay.
All right. So Picard and the Borg. The arc of the first season of Picard was tied to Picard's past and the guilt he carries regarding the death of Data in Star Trek Nemesis, as well as his involvement with the Romulans. While there may still be some other loose ends, the season provides a sense of closure in both of those cases. However, I know, man, I can't help myself. However, there is still a major issue that the former commander of the U.S. Enterprise D is still grappling with in 2399. In the LA Times interview, while talking about how Picard was influenced by the 2017 film Logan, which, yeah, he was in, Stewart points out how Shaban brought a significant piece of Jean-Luc's history into Picard's season. Oh, freaking Shaban. Michael, you also introduce emotional disturbance in Picard, which has not been present before, like his experience as a partially assimilated cybernetic organism Borg. There was no real residue from it, but there has to have been. What has it been like for the past 25 years, having gone through this incredible traumatic experience and never having had the chance to talk about it or reckon with it or purge it? Okay, let me say something on that first. So the first, I don't remember exactly how many episodes, but it was most of the season. Picard was having those Borg issues, the PTSD from it. He actually, when he got on the Borg cube, he collapsed. He was freaking out. But by the end of that episode, because he got a little walkabout, he was fine. PTSD gone. You know, like they didn't deal with it. All they said was, oh, I faced it, and in 30 minutes, I'm done. How is that?
He had a problem with the Borg cube almost as long as he was assimilated, which was like 36 hours. And it was a traumatic 36 hours. He, like the episode Family, he goes through the entire process of getting back onto who he was. He comes to terms with what he was forced to do by the Borg. And he's better for it because of what his brother helped him overcome. He then also had to address some of those issues in Star Trek First Contact. But across that time period, he has recovered. And I mean, it does sound a little cruel-hearted to say this, but no matter what tragedy you face, however severe it will become, if you can still wake up the next day, the pain may not go away, but you'll learn to live with it and you'll be able to function properly, and it won't be so much traumatic to you as you grow older because you'll have other experiences that are more rewarding than the trauma you went through. You'll appreciate the good times that you have because you understand that it's not going to be as worse as that bad moment. You can get over it. You can exercise it. It'll always be a part of you, yes, but a person who understands that you can't be dwelling on a terrible event of your past will be stronger for it by overcoming such a thing, and you'll learn to appreciate other aspects of life and the people you care about more because of that. I don't wish, obviously, a traumatic event to go happen to anyone, but that's just the nature of a person with conviction, especially a type of person like Patrick Stewart, who was stabbed through the back in the heart, was miraculously saved because there was a medical place nearby, and he learned to appreciate life, everything that it had to offer, and actually keep his head on his shoulders. And so it's old hat to him at this point, especially at his age and his experiences. He should not be debilitated by going back on a Borg cube. If anything, he should be determined and a little wary, but determined to, do what he has to do, because he's like, I know what the worst case scenario could be, and I'm going to be prepared for it.
Yeah, and Stephen Walton said he'd hit it. That's pretty much what he's saying there. We also have speaking of purging, coffee residue. Anyone? Thank you for the coffee. I love it. I love this I love this chat.
It's a great chat today. Yeah.
Author. Wow. I hate Jane, Nerd Cookies, and Christy. That is on my
Heart
stream
you too,
for life.
Steven.
I love
I
it.
heart you too.
I love it.
And Bear, well, thank you. And Bear Nerd Fun wants everybody to know that 9 p.m. Pacific time, the Four Horsemen in the late edition is running rampant. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Bear, throw your link. Oh, you did. Throw your link in the chat. Make sure you guys subscribe to Bear. The late edition is always fun. We have another one over here from another monster. We know, Steven, you didn't thank them. Yeah, exactly. Parrot Head. What does Parrot Head have to say? Stephen Wall, admit it, you don't hate them. You're just being grumpy. You know what will fix a grumpy heart? A cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to get to the heart faster, you go in through the rear end.
So
Coffee stains take on a new meaning. Yeah, go ahead, Christy.
I was gonna say, so this is the article from Digital Spy. If you open it up, it's so obviously it has images of like 7 of 9 and Picard, and it really starts to talk about her, like 7 of 9 being the representation, I guess you could say. Fuck it, I'll just share it.
Are they trying to say all people
you're
of
gonna share it?
the alphabet
That's all.
community
I'll
are
share it.
artificial?
Say that again, buddy.
Is basically the concept of having 7 of 9 be represented as part of the alphabet community, saying that everybody a part of the alphabet community was once partly artificial?
Yes and no.
Wow.
Share my screen.
Because I don't agree with that. I because she
We
was
do not
born,
agree with that.
she was cybernetic. That's part artificial.
So this is a part where she was talking about written in season 3, the Stoic Borg, Hardened, X-Drone, and then fans campaigning about having a character, and even the endorsement with Glad and Litter Nimoy. Many people were wondering if they would, if the promise that was made by Roddenberry back in 1981 to include gay members. So when 7 of 9 inclusion was announced, the rumors started flying, and it says right here, as it turned out, they weren't completely wrong. And it's this sentence right here that I was able to see. It says that back in 1998, Voyager producer Jerry Taylor revealed that she had pushed for 7 to be lesbian.
Jesus.
Um,
Why does it matter?
Oh gosh, yeah. Just wait, Scott. Wait till we move on to the next story, because I'm going to show you my story I wrote today.
Oh, okay. All right. Definitely put it up to share.
There was one more, if I can try to find it real quick. Sorry about that.
Please, no, I'll talk about the check. TT, I like yours. I think TT hits it off the nail on the head. How about we all just call it a year and put the Christmas decorations up now? I'm with you. Toxic Man Flu has to say, author Stephen Walton, I'm sorry. I take it all back. Don't you dare, Toxic Man Flu. Don't you dare. No, it's okay.
It's this right here. Although Siobhan wants these moments to be organic, representation can be undermined if it's not clear. And they hope season 2 will see 7 sexuality established in a more oblique way as her relationship with Raffi develops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this is oh god, this has everything to do with my story, because it just shows that this whole thing is just pervasive.
Well, share it up, man. Can you screenshot it or screen share it?
Yeah, I am. I'm working on it. All right.
What does the chat feel about this? Have we had enough people? Do we care? Do we really care anymore? Like, I don't care who the person's banging. Do we have to make it the focal point of the character? Okay, 7 and 9 is a great character pre Picard. All of a sudden now she's a whiskey swinging, gunslinging, no crap taking lesbian.
Can I use this reference real quick? Okay.
Yeah, please.
So back in late 90s, they had, the show Dawson's Creek. And
I never saw that.
Okay, but Jack, he's a gay character.
Plays football,
but they built him up. And so by the time it was revealed, again, I was a teenager and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool type thing.
Right.
And I can still, and thinking about it now, there were a lot of shows that were like that for me growing up, being 7, 8, all the way to a teenager. So, okay, I was like, okay. Now when I see my niece doing that, it's like, this person's gay, or I'm this, or I'm bi. It's forced into her where she doesn't want to watch anything.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. I understand Ellen. Ellen came out. That was a big moment for TV, I guess. But after that, in the 90s, like you just said, Jack from Dawson's Creek, you had Will and Grace. Like it was part of the character, but it wasn't the focal point of the character. You know what I mean? Like, why?
And that's always the point I go back to. It was organic diversity. Writers wrote with the character growth in mind, but it wasn't so forced. It had to constantly come from their sexuality. People already knew they were gay. They were introduced as gay, and that's fine. But you don't have to stop their character development just to amplify the gayness. It's like, it's like, come on,
I'm sorry, real quick, dude. I had enough that I have almost sworn off lesbian porn. Almost. I'm sorry. That's priceless. Priceless. Go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
All right. So we're kind of going to switch gears here. And this kind of goes with the topic we're talking about, guys. And this is and this is moving on into the gaming sphere. And this was a story I actually wrote today that I actually wrote one-handed. You go me.
Yeah, you. Hi, Steven.
But yeah, so Dead by Daylight, and I know this game because I used to stream this on Twitch all the time. It was my go-to. Dead by Daylight announces diverse sexual orientation for future characters. And I wanted to point this out because the tweet that I have in my story that the developers put out, funny thing is, guys, there was no cancel mom that came after them. There was nothing that indicated that this had to be a thing at all. Mm-hmm. This was just a case of, the company all of a sudden deciding they had to self-police and reevaluate. And they came out with a statement that said, here's the tweet, a message from the dev team. In the past, we've mentioned that we didn't aim to give a sexual orientation to our characters. The idea was to let players create their own narrative and identify themselves to the character they most related to. Now,
sounds good. We'll stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have an issue with that? That sounds actually the way most games should be. Like, okay, your
part of character customization. Yeah. That's fun.
There you
character
go.
Customization is great.
Right. Well, no, or even if it's not customized, if they already made it, they leave it kind of genderless. So if you want to assume it's a guy, it's a guy. If you assume it's a girl, it's a girl. It doesn't matter.
It was just, pre-established characters, guys, girls, from all different races, colors, creeds. And that's what it was. There's guys and girls of all different race, colors, creeds. Right. It's a very naturally diverse game from that aspect to begin with. But with this, they said now that Dead by Daylight's lore is getting more and more detailed, we realized that we didn't stay true to this vision. We did set our characters' preferences in the past, notably in heterosexual relationships, which again, stopping at that sentence, it's pretty funny. They put out backstories for these characters when the game first came out, before this expanded lore came into the game. And even now, you go through the most current lore in the game, there still isn't anything that says they're heterosexual or not heterosexual or anything like that. So this is like right here, just like a head scratcher. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, okay, I guess we're supposed to know that they're heterosexual. The point is, they never even focused on that anyway.
Well, the default belief perspective would be that they are heterosexual. Not that it needs to be brought up, because the wide swath of the population of the world is heterosexual. That's why we're approaching 8 billion people. Now, I'm not saying I am not saying I have a problem with gay people being gay. I have no problem with that. But a larger swath of the world community are heterosexual. Don't need to go any further than that. The only people who need to raise their hand or push themselves into the conversation are people who are not heterosexual.
So the statement goes on to read, we recognize that this is no longer reflects our original position. Game continues to evolve, and thanks to your precious feedback and questions regarding our characters' diversity, we have reviewed our plans and our position. We see Dead by Daylight as an inclusive game, and we're always looking to improve the way we reflect those values in our game. We are now better equipped to integrate diversified identities to the game and into the lore in the future.
So what is it going to be, non-binary by Daylight now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is a thing where it was never really like stressed in the first place. This was just an announcement that was a straight up self-policed virtue signal. And then they posted this announcement, I guess, for a victory lap to say, hey, look at us, we're diverse, but they didn't even have to do that. Now, I went through, when I researched for this article this morning, I went through to try to find anybody that was, moaning, complaining about the game or gay characters or anything like that. There was one thread in the game's forums from like 2017 or 2018 where somebody asked the question, one person asked the question, will there be a gay character in the future? This is a multiplayer game, and most people play it either to stream it, have fun with friends, or just,
Not me, Drew. I play it to identify with my gay scars.
But Scott, can you go back up to Thomas's comment about the zombie comment?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what does it care? What does it care if a character? No, not that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
If it's no, keep going.
Okay, going back up. I like that comment though.
Well, I say good point, Thomas. So
I got you.
I mean, he brings up a good point. If they are shooting zombies, does it matter who they sleep with?
10-15.
No.
Since when do zombies have sex?
Exactly.
What does it matter?
Well, and I bring the point home in the article too, guys, because in the article I kind of go through after the statement and sort of explain, some of the history of the characters in the game, and that this was never a big deal anyway. Right. And then I just said, in the 3 years that I have been a Dead by Daylight player, my focus has always been on the multiplayer experience itself. The same goes for many of the other Dead by Daylight players that I know. We play either to stream our gameplay, get together to have some fun with friends, or just level up the various killers and survivors. A particular character's sexual orientation isn't in the forefront of our minds.
Right. You know what's in the forefront of my mind? Here at Walton's Ass Crack Coffee, we don't discriminate. If you like women, men and women, men who identify as female, as a male deer that eats grass, we have an enema brew for you. And I think that is one of the most important things we read tonight.
Would that
I
be like
truly
called Walton
do.
Bucks?
Oh shit, that's funny.
But
No, it's not, Christy.
Sorry,
Yes,
Drew.
it is.
That had to be said.
Sorry, Drew.
I know. But just to kind of like wind down on the article here, in gathering information for this article, it seems there wasn't any pressure for DVD to be more inclusive. Rather, this appears to be a preemptive, self-policing move to be more inclusive and stay on the right side of diversity culture.
Right.
We'll see how this turns out for the developer and DVD in the long term. In an industry that is rife with virtue signaling and bending the knee to woke culture, this appears to be just more of the same. And then I just, ask people to share their thoughts. But yeah, I find it hilarious because, this is coming on the heels of, didn't The Last of Us 2 just come out?
Yep.
And all the garbage about the reviews and shit like that. And
Hail to RK Outpost, our brother.
And all the shit that we've gone through with that shit show of a game, just like woke culture taking over this industry too. There's no escape ever. It's in our TV. It's in our movies. You have
Brutal Morning Wood right here who puts it perfectly. Yeah, I have friends of all kinds of ethnic mixes and sexual preferences. None of them walk around like announcing it or handing out a file on themselves.
I know, right?
Who is calling for this? It's that little bubble of either tech nerds, Hollywood, Silicon Valley. It's that bubble. And that bubble is the same bubble that's saying that burning down people's businesses and stealing shit and hurting police officers will bail you out of jail. Because you know what? We have white guilt.
That is a great example because I guarantee you that some television, film, and games that are going to come out over the next year are going to pardon that behavior or support it.
Absolutely.
Guarantee you it's coming. And
absolutely they will.
I am ready to write that chapter as an example of how media and entertainment claim no responsibility for the lives that they hurt while virtue signaling on behalf of groups that they do not belong to.
Right. And to piggyback off that, Stephen, we need to look at the ripple effect of what we were talking about before about, the riots and things like that. Just the rampant rise of how they've ramped up the censorship as well, because it's getting very, very concerning. We're getting another big wave of censorship that's coming through, and it's getting worse because it's just coming like somebody's taken a big sickle and they're just cutting all these shows down in one fell swoop. Like Paw Patrol, really? You're going to cancel Paw Patrol?
That one blows my ever-loving mind, dude.
I can't believe that.
I mean, you're not canceling. No, you're not canceling Paw Patrol. What you're doing is you're canceling the police officer dog. Like, what are you going to euthanize the poor bastard and replace him with a freaking chihuahua of, I was going to go off there. I'm sorry.
He's going to retire and he's going to be a private eye because, private eyes, they don't have any issues with brutality.
Well, the other thing too is, for some reason I've seen people lately like lumping in the fire department with this too, and it's like, why are you all of a sudden going to demonize first responders? You're going to make it so that first responders no longer care about their jobs. Period.
Yeah. Plus, firemen already have it hard enough. They work 1 day a month.
Yeah. I mean, this is
who works 1 day a month.
I don't
I'm
care
just
how
joking.
many of you people
Firefighters don't really work 1 day a month.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm too focused on Stephen Walton's enemas.
No, I have a couple of friends. Even one of my best friend's fathers is a fireman. He lived down the road from the fire department he worked at. His kids did not know he was a fireman until they were like in their teenage years because he just didn't. There's never an issue for him to go to work because there's never any fires.
Well, my brother-in-law's a firefighter.
I know firefighters. Yes, they're usually like 3 or 4 days on, 3 or 4 days off.
Same as paramedics.
Right. The difference is yes, maybe nothing happens for 99% of their schedule that week. That 1% can kill them.
Yep.
That 1% could kill them. And we have people throwing bricks at fire trucks trying to go rescue a mother and daughter who are trapped in a fire, blocking the road so these people can't get through. It's a shit stir, and we need a clean enema to pull out that crap and let the firefighters through.
Exactly. I mean, this is garbage, and in the way that these ripples are spreading out, and all the knee-jerk censorship that's coming in regards to that is the fact that nobody wins out of any of this. The people that got their show Live PD canceled, there are a lot of fans of that television show, including me. I enjoyed Live PD. You actually get to see police doing your jobs. They took cops off already. They canceled that. They canceled Live PD. And so they were talking about taking off all the Dick Wolf police procedurals as well. So no Blue Bloods, no Law and Order SVU, no Chicago PD, no anything like that. It's just a blanket generalization. Again, same as their hollow ass statements that everybody's bitching about now. It's just so garbage, and it's not going to go away because it's only going to get worse across entertainment.
And you know what? Just real quick, Michael Wolf has a really valid point. It almost feels like, and I am somewhat a conspiracy guy, but I feel like all this shit just keeps building up and building up, and like pressure against the walls to the point where like you feel like if it pops, it's gonna hurt. So what do you do to lube that up and lather it up and get it to spray out? What you do is you use the coffee enema. I was really trying to hold it.
I am not a conspiracy theorist. All right. I'm not. As a matter of fact, I didn't even care about politics or any of that shit leading up until 2016. But I watched 2015 and 2016, and I saw the outcome of that election. And I watched as all of the media, paper media, electronic media, everything was working for the Democratic Party. Everything. Hillary Clinton was supposed to win that election. That was the mindset. They even screwed Bernie Sanders, which was their best chance to get in the White House because there was a lot of energy behind Bernie. I liked Bernie Sanders at the time. They screwed themselves, and then Trump got in there. Trump was not supposed to get in the White House. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist when I say that, because they don't want him in there. I don't think that he's connected to the machine.
He's not a globalist,
right?
He's not a globalist.
He's been a businessman his whole life. You could argue good or bad businessman. You can argue his ethics. You could argue whatever you want. I don't really care.
Yeah, he's a lot of things, but he's not a globalist.
Right, he's not a globalist. So him getting in there, he has a lot of enemies, and we are seeing this election year ramp up. We're going to see more strange shit. I guarantee you, we're going to see some more off the wall, oh my God, crap like we have been seeing, just so they can create enough confusion to get him out.
Well, has he filled his cabinet yet since his inauguration? I mean, I remember there's a lot of positions left open that are being done by assistants, and people just...
He fills what he needs.
Yeah. He keeps what's called the fluid cabinet. He just fills it on the fly.
Exactly. But you got a point, and real quick, you have that point is that, 4 years ago, things like this were starting to pop off here and there. It always seems like every 4 years, something builds up, and that it creates that vacuum of who's going to fill this leadership role. And I think they didn't realize that everyone wouldn't have looked, we need Hillary because he doesn't have any experience.
Yeah, but
backfired on them.
Well, they didn't learn.
So now they're going. Now they're going. Well, yeah,
they didn't learn from that. That was bad. That was a bad look. The whole country looked at that situation, saw the mother of that person go burn this and mother effer down. Saw Black Lives Matter in there causing havoc, Antifa in there causing havoc, and that was one of the big things that probably swayed a lot of independents into voting Republican for the next term. It's a bad look. I don't understand why they would use the same tactics over again. Again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I believe a lot of what's going on is being funded by people, or is being funded by people who have certain political persuasions, and this is just another push to create chaos.
yeah, it's also kind
Christy,
of telling
what-
the fact that the American people, at least the majority of ones vote, don't realize that you can't put all your eggs in the one basket of the president. You've got to vote locally. You've got to vote for your congressman and your senator to get things
Christy,
changed, because
yeah, I
it's
think
not
Christy
just
was
a
gonna jump on that
one
too.
guy fixes all problems. It's a whole tier of people that have to get involved.
I was just about to say something about that. It's because the only time a lot of my family members, when they vote, is for the president, like the president. And it chaps my ass that they don't vote city, county, state, and stuff like that.
Right.
If you want shit to change, you have to do it locally first.
Right.
Because if you don't change the government of your city and state, you wind up in a situation like what's going on in Seattle, what's trying to happen.
Yeah.
What's trying to happen in Minneapolis, what's happening in Asheville. These are all blue states.
These are all blue states, and they realize that
What's happening in Asheville?
because of the people's ability.
No, real quick, Steven, real quick. They're trying a CHAZ over there too. Go ahead.
Oh
Steven.
boy.
Because of the fact that you have people with free will, and they understand that the really much of Middle America is not falling for any of this.
Right.
They're not going to vote people in that promote this kind of craziness. I'm sorry, I'm not using my words tonight. That promote this kind of chaos and disorder. So what's the next step? Well, let's completely overturn the system and just take utter control of it.
Well, Stephen, what I wanted to kind of elaborate on though is the fact that and I put tweets out this week to this effect. And this is why I keep reminding everybody, we are on the front lines of the culture war still. A lot of people feel drained right now. A lot of people feel like we lost, but we are still on the front lines of the culture war. What we say does still have weight. We are the people that did get J.J. Abrams to notice us.
His assistant noticed us and then told him this is a talking point. He has no idea how big or anything the
I know.
But
I'm just saying it's in their heads a little bit.
Yeah,
I think
we are.
I don't think we're occupying any of his space in his head because of that $500 million he's swimming in for Warner Brothers, man.
What, Christy?
And I was going to say, let's go back. I'd be perfectly honest. I can't stand Trump. But I'm also not an idiot to think how with everything is going on, he is not going to get reelected this year.
Well, right. Well, there's obviously, it's come down to the fact that, if you don't vote that way, what you're going to get is a very Marxist, very authoritarian, and very much selective memory type of administration, where they're going to actually continue this crackdown of revising history, changing and deciding what you watch. You're going to have that ideology dictated to you in your games, in your movies, and that's what I want to impress upon people is that we need to stop this. It's no longer just about the alphabet community coming out and virtue signaling that they want their inclusion and everything. It's now full on Marxist people saying, we don't want your style.
Well, it's not your traditional as far as the alphabet community, it's not your traditional gay people, it's not your traditional lesbians, it's not the people that marched in the 80s and the 90s and got gay rights. It's not them. It's people who are using that platform to virtue signal, to use it as a shield, to bludgeon you over the head, to bring up things that have already been buried. Most of America pretty much just accepts it. I mean, even Christian conservatives are like, all right, those people are going to hell. You have to, like my son's grandfather, big Christian. They told me a story about him going to a church and there was a female preacher and they were having a discussion. And one of his solid points in that debate was, well, you understand you're going to hell anyway. Like those conversations still happen. But the general population pretty much accepts homosexuality. It's just it is what it is. And they did it. Like one video we watched the other week with a very, very flamboyant gay man who said, you get people to accept you by being likable. So it's not your traditional gay community. And, the people that what it is you have to pick your battleground in the culture war, right? Because it's too big. There's too many things going on. And my battleground is entertainment. That's why I'm writing the books I'm writing. That's why I support the Fandom Menace. This is where I'm fighting the culture war. I want your politics out of our escapism and out of our entertainment. I want you to stop using these platforms to espouse your rhetoric and propaganda, create division and hate, and start pointing out all the differences in people. Not only that, but yelling at traditional families, traditional sexuality. I'm sorry, heterosexuality is the norm. All right, it just is. I'm not saying that being homosexual is bad or evil or any of that. And in some cases, I guess you could argue it being a norm if it's just a natural occurrence that happens within a person during the development of their fetus and a human being, and that's fine. I totally accept that. But there are a lot of things that are being pushed on us that are mental illness based. And they're trying to say that this is a natural occurrence. No, this is something that needs to be treated and taken care of. And this is happening on all fronts. These different issues, these select issues that should be looked at upon individual cases and helped along, protected if need be, accepted, as just that person's identifying state. These things should be taken on a case-by-case basis. They're being presented to us on broad terms because the way that the school systems and the educational systems have been providing ill-equipped education to our young people. They've been dumbing down America to the point where you can't have complex conversations or with any nuance. Everything is a grand swath. Everything is white or black, right or wrong, and that is not the world. Be presenting these issues in that way upon doing it upon other groups for which you do not belong and acting like you're doing something virtuous is so disingenuous and so disrespectful to people who are actually trying to assimilate into society or to have something about themselves normalized. It's all weaponized for the reasons of social engineering, and that's where we're at. Everyone's got to choose their ground in the culture war. Mine is entertainment. If yours is politics, if you're well thought, if you're a political minded person, get into politics.
Yeah.
If you're a person who has a problem with law enforcement, get into law enforcement. If you're a person who wants to change laws, well, become a lawyer, become a judge, because you be active. Writing,
that's it right there,
shooting,
man.
doing.
No, what I was just going to say real quick was that's what it is right there. Instead of burning down your own neighborhood, get involved in what you want to change. That's the way to change it. You need to change within the system. And if enough people do it, it will change. That's why when you elect someone, you win, some people lose. That's why you get every 4 years, you get to elect somebody new. If that person doesn't do a good job, you get a chance to change
You need
them.
to get rid of term limits in the. You need term limits in the Senate. Is what you need.
50
Yeah.
You need to get rid of lobbying too. But I was going to say this. What you and Stephen were just saying. It's amazing what happens when you educate yourself on something and you find out about it. It's just amazing.
It is. It is amazing. Spent the last couple weeks listening to. Thank God for the Fandom Menace. I don't mean to be preachy right now, but thank God, because there are so many different people with different perspectives in the Fandom Menace that you respect, that you talk about Star Wars or Star Trek or any of these things, any other geek culture thing, and you're like on the same page. And then things like this happen. Well, Black Lives Matter, for instance, and then you hear all these different perspectives. You find out how different you may think than someone else that you've loved and respected and talked with and hung out with for the last year or so. But that gives you the opportunity to understand that person's perspective and maybe be engaged and learn a little bit more about what's going on. This is where I figured out the difference between grassroots BLM and this corporate BLM. It's just two different thought processes that are going on. The people in the grassroots are not saying white lives don't matter, anyone else's lives don't matter. They're just worried about their own people. And then you have the corporate side of BLM, which is causing all of this chaos.
Right. Funding the Democratic Party when some of these people, grassroots, might be more leaning conservative. I think that's another issue, is when you have a movement that funds one party over another. Now you just alienated anyone who considers themselves a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
That is messed up. That's no longer a movement. That is now
it's a union
function of the Democrat. It's a union. Yeah. It's function of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. On top of that, they're idiots too, because they don't even vote for the right people who in the Democratic Party are actually following a doctrine that would be helpful to a Democratic Party, like Tulsi was it Tulsi Gabbard or
Tulsi
who's the
Gabbard.
Hawaiian?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. She was like the most common sense politician I've seen on the Democratic side in like what 15 years.
Yeah, and what did they do? They absolutely targeted and
Pulled her out.
repressed her for a reason.
Yes.
Because
because she was actually a very good candidate. Look, I consider myself more libertarian than Republican, and I was listening to her. I thought she had very good views.
she had a lot of good points,
and she was hot.
Yeah.
But you know what's sad about that though is even though everybody was talking about her and people just regular Joes and stuff like that saying that she's a good candidate, at the same time we were all saying she will be ostracized to hell.
Yeah.
She will. I mean, it's a 2 for 2. She's great. I would have voted for her, no doubt. But I knew for a fact there's no damn way that she was going to even get the nomination.
Well, what sucks is she did get a delegate. And when you have one delegate, you're supposed to be allowed to be in the debates, and they changed the effing rules. So she was pushed out of the last debate.
Well, the entire debate system is also terrible because they don't allow for independents.
No, they don't. And it's a crying shame.
Unless you're really rich like Perot was.
Yeah.
That was in the 90s. They were still a little open back in those days. But like, ever since 98, it's like you're an independent so long your voice doesn't matter.
Perot is Texas, by the way. I'm just saying, all you people out there, that Texas was just a red state and stuff like that. I'm just saying.
I do want to give a shout out to McKinney 90 for her earlier comment. This is Supreme Heretic McKinney 90, and I think you keep up that good fight for what you're doing, sister.
Yes, right here.
But
I didn't know McKinney is a female.
But listen, I
didn't know that.
I think that
McKinney's a guy.
I thought McKinney was a dude.
Yeah.
But all McKinney said is if you look at what I put out, you can tell that my battle in the culture war comes from the depiction of women in media and fiction and how femininity is being lashed out at. And I hail that because they no longer want women to be women. No, they want women to look like boys in comic books. They want women to act like men in movies and TV. And
they're afraid of boobies. Ridiculous. That's what they are.
Right. Though a woman using her sexuality is wrong. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, we also have to keep in perspective now.
I'm a guy.
The stakes in the culture war have now changed. It's a battle for Western civilization at this point. It's no longer just
that's a perfect way for
culture war. It's basically we are in the big battle for Western civilization. They want to replace traditional Western civilization entirely and, introduce this anarcho-communism model, trying to build some kind of sick utopia that is not going to work.
I mean, look, you're ripping down statues. You're ripping down abolitionist statues. You're ripping down Christopher Columbus. Yes, he had his issues, but if you take him as the man he was at the time he was, and that he's also...
he's a very small figure. He was only built up because the Italians that immigrated to the United States were being oppressed, so they decided to use him to sort of help alleviate the prejudice they were facing. And it was a clever tactic. I mean,
it was a very clever tactic.
My uncle's Italian. He's just like Columbus. He's a nobody in my culture, and he was born in Naples, right? So,
right. I mean, outside of the United States, a lot of Italians don't care for him because he used Spain and went that route.
Yeah.
The thing is that they don't even know what they're tearing down. I forget the name of the guy. He's an abolitionist, funded black colleges and schools, and they tore down his statue. All they want to do is exactly what Drew said. They want to rip down Western civilization. They don't care who or, how many people they hurt in the process. They want some weird idea of a socialist, which is really communist idea, and no matter what you do, there's always a human being in charge, and that person is going to move whatever utopia you created to what they want it to be. So why not have an open republic where you can control who's in charge? Yes, it may be a few years where you have to pout and be upset that the orange man's in charge. Well, guess what? Get out and vote him out then.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
we're dealing with something like that here in Ontario. There's a significant Scottish figure in Canadian
William
history.
Wallace?
No, his
Oh.
name is Henry Dundas. His name is Henry Dundas. He's a jerk. He was an asshole.
Dundas?
D-U-N, yeah, Dundas. D-U-N-D-A-S. We have several streets named after him. I think
Steven?
there's a couple of towns.
Do you know him?
No, I'm not
He's from the
familiar.
1700s.
Oh, okay. Dundas. Okay.
Now he was a jerk. He basically did a lot of embezzling within the United Kingdom, and he also staved off the abolition of slavery for a few decades. However, he also was a lawyer who represented people that were black in court and defended them. So it's a little complicated, but most of all, he's kind of a jerk. But he made a lot of friends with people that discovered the New World, and they named areas after him. And now there's this new group that wants to rename these areas, like the Dundas Street West, which is in Toronto. It also goes all the way out to other areas, and there's other towns called Dundas and whatnot. They want to rename it to something else, which is stupid because these have been the town's names for over 100 years or so. In fact, I think there's a town they named Dundas that would have been the capital of the province if Toronto didn't have quicker access to the shipping lanes. So,
I mean,
so they want to rename it, but the thing is,
Whitewash.
Yeah,
Whitewash your history.
mhm.
they do. However, this guy Henry Dundas, he has a father named Robert Dundas, who is actually a really cool guy.
Dick Dundas? Okay.
Yeah, Dick Dundas.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm just of the party. I saw this trending on Twitter in the Canadian side of things. I'm like, yeah, let's just rename it after his dad, who wasn't this horrible person, and therefore you appease the stupid SJWs that want to rename it, but you still keep the name because nothing's changed. You just change it from the son to the father, who is better.
I think
That's
we've
a great
gone
idea.
too far.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that history lesson, man.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you have to think about as well. For those of our friends that are out there in the chat that live in the U.S. Even your state traditions in your state, traditions in your cities are being torn down, erased, all because of a knee-jerk reaction. See, this whole thing has been nothing but political excuse. This was the perfect event to politicize, to further this agenda. And as soon as this happened with George Floyd, it just got absolutely bastardized, blown out of proportion, politicized, and turned into the start of this operation to take down Western civilization, which is what they wanted in the first place. And now it's ramped up because, as you can see with the protests, not only in our country, but going on around the world right now, it's got the same MO and the same pattern.
It seems like it's been very deliberate and planned, and you could call people conspiracy theorists if they believe it, but it just seems like somebody has been backing this. You find Twitter posts about where to meet, how to do, what to do. This is an attack on our country and Western civilization. The problem is that we just said it a little bit ago. Trump isn't a globalist. Trump believes in the states having their power, and because of that, he can't just send in the troops.
He believes in the U.S. and the individual states, being unique in their own ways that we're used to. He believes in tradition, and I give him credit for that. But the thing is you put that on a country level, you have to realize, guys, even those of you that live in other countries, your country's identity is under attack. It'll cease to be, the proud Canada that or the
proud Canada,
or the UK that
Canadian.
Things are gonna,
proud in Canada, and the same name makes me laugh. Okay,
blame Canada.
Yeah,
blame Canada.
Things are going to cease to be unique at all. It's going to just go under the same mantra, and it's going to eventually turn into, it's going to put us on a path to one world government if we're not careful. This is our chance to really step up, do something about it, and turn the tide.
If President Trump was really this awful person who wants to be a dictator that the left has been trying to say he is, and mind you, I'm not a Trump supporter, but if he is this type of person, he would have already had the National Guard activated in every state. He would have already had the military all over the place with boots on the ground. What's happening right now in Portland would have been squashed. All right? He has done everything. Once you put the military into civilian territory, once you deploy them and they take control and you have martial law, that opens up a whole lot of dangerous avenues. The restraint that he showed, whether it's been his own intellect or that of advisement, to have not gone that far at this stage, it shows wisdom to whoever is giving him that wisdom. That's not what this country is about. But on the same token, what's happening in Portland, if I were him, I'd be sitting back and going, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Show everybody what you really want, what you really are. Go ahead and show them. Let it happen.
Tell them to show their passports that they want back in the United States.
That is one of the.
Love it.
If you honestly want a good laugh, folks, as Stephen alluded to, what's going on in Portland and also Seattle, just pay attention to the CHAZ threads because they are getting hilarious by the day.
Oh God, yeah, their requests are perfect.
These people just, and let's be real, like a lot of these people, yes, Antifa is a trained organization. They're trained in disruption. They're trained, in a lot of different tactics. But what they're not obviously trained in is how to be self-sufficient.
Right, and don't forget, also, there are a lot of kids out there that have heard stories of the 60s and the 90s and even in the 80s and 70s of gang out there protesting, causing a little havoc, and they just want to be part of something. So, not everybody out there is a looter or a rioter, but the ones that are should be prosecuted. They should be arrested and prosecuted. The ones that have been murdering people should be put to, whatever your state calls for, give them the worst. But we're going to be wrapping it up, fellas. It's a little over the 2-hour mark. That flew by. Thank you for everybody that stuck with us this whole time. I know we jumped from, serious to Star Trek to serious again, but I would like to end it.
Star Trek is serious to me, Scott.
It is serious, but I do like to end it with something I think that's very important for everyone to hear.
Don, I wouldn't take any of the naked women from them. Ew.
Tells me this is America.
America.
No, give me my sexy.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
What?
Nothing.
What, Steven? Be part of America, Steven. Okay, and I'm fumbling the fucking handoff here. All right, here we go.
Oh God!
It's coffee in your butt.
So important. It needs to be heard more than once, Stephen. It needs to be heard more than once.
I'm going to regret doing this.
Oh God!
It's coffee in your butt.
Disgusting!
I hope it came in clear. I know it was blurry.
Yes, it did.
I hope you all heard that.
Thing? Why is this a thing?
I don't know.
It's a
And
great
I just want to
question, isn't it?
remember, beware the brew.
Jesus Christ.
Beware the brew. I believe this is what it is.
Yep.
Beware the brew. Hashtag beware the brew is what we're going to try to get to trend on Twitter.
No, you're not.
Fatal J, you know what's up, my brother? It's all about Stephen Walton loving coffee enemas.
No.
That's what's up, my friend.
No, nerd cookies. Not
I
me.
can actually hear Fatal J's reaction to that.
Hey, Steven, you know where this got momentum too? Raquel certainly helped us.
Oh my God.
After that stream we had on Pegasus.
Listen, I'm tired of talking about this. I'm tired of being on different streams and having to speak about this. This is because it's James Berry,
Don't you
Nerd
want to
Cookies, and now Christy.
You're
What
welcome.
are you tired about speaking about, Steven?
I'm not saying it. I'm done talking about it. I don't want to.
About what?
Animas lives matter.
Yeah,
That's true,
Steven, I'll
Christy.
pick you up
Animals'
with
lives
a
matter.
box copy.
That's disgusting.
And as McKinney says, this is America. Okay? If you don't like America, where we do coffee enemas
Yeah.
and we talk about hot chicks that might be dudes. America.
There you go. Yeah.
America, enema.
The fandom menace is not built on coffee enemas. All right, this is we should not be discussing this. This is
I don't know.
has
Tonight
nothing
is
to
the
do.
random enema.
Oh.
Hashtag have a drink in me.
Ew.
Oh man.
Ooh.
I don't know where you came from, Brutal, but
I
God damn
love
it.
Brutal Morningwood. That is my
That's
just
a
the
great name.
name.
That's a great name.
That's the
No, I'm
Kai.
definitely going to be able to work that into some conversations at home over the next little while. That's for sure.
No, TT, you used to be my boy, man.
TT's my boy, okay? TT, my friend from a land down under. Yeah, where the coffee hurts when they shove it under. All right.
Love you, TT. Good shit.
Yes.
Share this again real quick. Here at Walton's Ass Crack Coffee, we don't discriminate. If you like women, men and women, men who identify as female as a male deer that eats grass, we have an enema brew for you.
Why is this a meme now? What the hell? Who took that? Who did that? Why is this a thing?
I love you.
Oh,
Love you.
Oh, this is fantastic. Let's start with Script Doctor. Let them know where you're at.
Oh, it doesn't matter. If you like my content, please feel free to subscribe. If you don't, that's okay. It's all good. You can find me on youtube.com/scriptdoctor. You can find me lurking in some of the chats for author Stephen Walton's channel. Also Sporking News. I also do a podcast with my boy Drew down in the corner there with Katie Sackhoff as his avatar, called the Pegasus Actual Podcast. So check us out there on Thursdays at 9. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at ScriptDoctorPhD. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
No, thank you, buddy. I always love having you on. And don't forget, if you have a coffee grinder is when you put the beans in and then the vibrator in your ass, it puts it on the high setting.
It's just, on an unrelated note, Christy, it's great to be on the stream together with you again.
Hi, Drew. I know. We always have fun.
Oh, it's 4:30.
Steven's expense.
Thomas William, have that cup of coffee any way you want it, up or down. All right, Christy, tell them where they can find you.
Shit. Well, my name is Christy, and I do live streams, podcasts, whatever the hell you want to say, with Script Doctor, with Scott. Let's see what else. With Steve, Tom from Midnight's Edge. It's just I'm like a STD. I'm everywhere.
What?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
You are a lady of the streams.
All
Just
right,
watch
Drew.
out for leprechauns. They're not real, Christy.
Yeah, but they'll fuck you. Drew, you go, buddy.
What the fuck?
Well, you don't know about the leprechaun that bangs people and tells them they're going to give him gold? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's an old story. Oh,
Hey,
wise
I know.
tale.
Look, I'm a 5'3" Asian midget with one arm. I could pretend I'm a leprechaun. You share some of that jasmine rice with me, baby. I'll take you to the moon.
And with that, Drew, where could they find you?
Yes, you can find me on bountyintocomics.com. I happen to write for that website, as does my buddy Dollified, a.k.a. Don Edmonds. Make sure you read us there. I also do a podcast on Thursdays, a really good Battlestar Galactica podcast with the one, the only author, Stephen Walton, and, of course, my best friend, Script Doctor PhD. And shout out to our girl, Raquel. Raquel makes that show shine. And we also have our buddy Brian the Gravedigger, and of course Bear Nerd Fun when he can make it. So make sure that you check us out on Thursdays. If you like Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, it's a really good time. We go in depth, we review episodes, and we bring a lot of good commentary to it, because if you want an in-depth look in an episode, definitely don't miss that, because we always got a good show every week, and our chat is off the hook. A lot of our chatters are in here. You know, shout out to Toxic Man Flu, shout out to Parrot Head, my boys, and obviously Don and all the rest of you in chat here tonight. You guys brought it strong. So thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you soon. All right, Stephen, you're up, buddy.
Stephen?
All right. I am the Fandom Menace historian. You can check me out on author Stephen Walton with Scott, I guess.
Yes,
and Final Death Star, Jane Theory, and Lorena Creel on Tuesdays and Saturdays. You can also find me on the Pegasus Actual Podcast with Script Doctor and Drew and Brian the Gravedigger and the wonderful Raquel. And this weekend coming up, this Saturday coming up, the Rogue Entertainment, our Saturday show is going to be on John Talks. We're going to be doing that every third weekend of the month. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you to everybody who's been so supportive. The Phantom Menace Volume 1, Phantom Betrayed, is still in demand for the next few weeks. Nick and I are working out the idea or the concepts for the cover for Volume 2. And looking forward to seeing that. Wash your hands, wash your ass, be good to each other. Peace.
Thank you, Stephen. Yep. Thank you guys for popping in. I appreciate everyone. I'm going to be probably doing these every 2 weeks or so after our Rogue Entertainment stream. Maybe the next one, hopefully, will be a little even more lighthearted. But I like to talk real, and I hope you guys follow us. Please check out our stream, Christy, myself, Jane Theory, and Stig Kenobi on Mondays and Wednesday nights. Monday nights, we do Winds of Winter, which is a Song of Ice and Fire books from George R.R. Martin. We do predictions. And on Wednesday, we're doing a reread of Game of Thrones, the book. And we are on chapter 27 to probably like 31 if we're lucky. So please check us out. That's at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And please, everyone, remember, if you got an ass, put a coffee